Today I'm going to be visiting St Cynhearn's church in the county of Gwynedd in Wales. The church was built on an island in the middle of a lake and it dates back to the Middle Ages. The church is in quite an isolated spot. It's about 1 kilometre from the main road. Now the lake, I presume the lake must have been quite a shallow lake and would have been located down here. I've never been here before, but from the photos I've seen, the churchyard looks like it might be in a very atmospheric spot. There's two graves in particular that I'm going to be looking for in the churchyard. You've got the grave of Dafydd y Garreg Wen, or David of the White Rock, who was a famous harpist and composer. There's also the grave of Jack Ystumllyn, who's believed to be one of the first black men to live in North Wales. It's a very still day and the sun has just come out properly now. So the lake must have come up right up to the road here before it was drained. I'm not sure which year it was actually drained. And the church is just over here. It's a redundant church, but it's maintained by an organisation called the Friends of Friendless Churches. Got some headstones in here, obviously being removed from their original position. Jane Frances, interred 8 October 1769, aged 15. Betty Roberts, Cwr Clwt, that's the name of the house, 1822, aged 85. In memory of Thomas Rowlands, aged 55, 1757. So there's some pretty old graves here. The two notable graves that I'm looking for actually dates to the 1700s. It looks like I've got the place to myself. I understand it's pretty spectacular inside the church, so we'll go inside and then have a look around the churchyard. This is obviously in reference to Dafydd y Garreg Wen. Carrie says Dafydd my harp for me. You have the ordinary people sitting on the left hand side. On the right hand side you've got the names of notable families in the area, and they all sat on the right hand side. Got a chapel that's been added on here, I believe in the 1600s. I mentioned Dafydd y Garreg Wen earlier, or David of the White Rock. I believe his grave is over here somewhere. Somebody's actually left flowers here. He was a local blind composer and harpist, and he was known as Dafydd y Garreg Wen after the name of the farm where he lived. And he wrote a tune on his deathbed at the age of 29. Words were later added to this tune many years after his death. It's a fairly famous song. It's just called Dafydd y Garreg Wen, and it's often played by military bands during remembrance services in the UK. Grave of David Owen, or David of the White Rock, who was buried 1749 at the age of 29. Memory of 5 of the children of David Parry and Lowry Griffith, his wife. The one who were all fyd a byddar, that would be deaf mute. Henry Parry, who was buried April 16th, 1839 at 53 years. Eleanor Parry, November 26th, 1842 at 64. Mary Parry, February 21st, 1856 at the age of 67. Griffith Parry, December 2nd, 1858 at the age of 76. And Jane Roberts, who was buried August 24th, 1855 at the age of 57. This is the grave of Jack Ystumllyn. He was the first, or one of the first, black men to live in North Wales. It's a very sad story. He was a victim of the slave trade, and he was brought here to work for the Wen family in about 1742, when he was only 8 years old. He worked as a gardener for the Wen family, and he was very popular locally and suffered very little prejudice. He actually ran away from the Wen family, but later returned, and he was given a house to live in by the family. He married a local girl, Margaret Griffith, and he had 7 children. He died in 1786, although the date of death is incorrectly stated as 1790 on the headstone, which was placed here a couple of years after his death. He was fluent both in Welsh and English, and he was described as an honest man with no malice, and respected by the gentry and the common people alike. Some of his descendants still live in this area. He would have been brought to Wales either from West Africa or the West Indies. This bit is incorrect because it states that he came from India. But I've got a translation of it. India was the land of my birth, but I was baptized in Wales. This spot, marked by a grey slate, is my cold, dark resting place. It's unknown what his actual birth name was. There's actually a painting or a portrait that was taken of him during his teenage years. It's a very peaceful spot. Sadly, there's somebody with a chainsaw in the background at the moment, though. Here lieth the remains of 3 daughters of John Evan Smith, Pentrefilyn, by Catherine, his wife. You've got Jane, died September 28th, 1826, that's 3 years. Janet died 29th of January 1833, aged 18 years. And Margaret, who died March 8th, 1834, at 1 year old. And nearby, you've got this grave here. Underneath are interred the remains of Robert Evans, blacksmith, in the town of Crickheth, who departed this life on 20th of January 1850, aged 56 years. Also Dorothy, his wife, who died on the 6th of April 1862, aged 64. There's a separate graveyard just beyond this wall, although it doesn't seem to be many recent burials there. Some of the headstones over there look fairly old as well. This is the grave of Robert Pritchard, and he was a carpenter in the town of Tremadog, and he died July 15th, 1843, at the age of 70. I like it when the person's profession is stated on the headstone. I'm not going to read all the names on this grave here, but there's about 9 people buried here, and they were all buried over a period of 120 years. The first person who was buried here was buried in 1719. It was an A.H., 53 years old. Then you got a J.G., 1720, at the age of 56. So the first 2 people who were buried here 300 years ago. And the final person to be buried here was Gwynedd Thomas. Oh no, she was actually buried in Ynys Môn, but she's named on the headstone here. She died in 1841. There's an Anne Thomas here, and she was buried here in December 24th. On December 24th, 1841, at the age of 93. So 8 people buried here, not 9. Here lies William Owen, pilot. That'd be the person who would guide the ship into port, I guess. The one who died May 11th, 1832, at the age of 70. Also here is buried Catherine, his wife, the one who died June 21st, 1839, at the age of 81. Another grave here where the profession of the person has been stated. Ellis Owen. It says Porthmon enwog, that would translate to famous drover. Someone who drives livestock over long distances, so he must have been pretty well known in the area. And he died at the age of 65 in 1857, and he's buried with his son Owen Ellis, who was buried here March 22nd, 1803, at the age of 70. I really need to be visiting some more churches in this area. Okay guys, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
이제 내게 남은 인사를 건네줄게.